Servant Season 3, Episode 5 was titled Tiger. Turners attend a block party on Spruce Street. While Leanne finally feels comfortable enough to go outside the house, she finds herself in danger. What is going on to all my Servant fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again, breaking down the latest episode of Apple TV Plus Servant Season 3, Episode 5, titled Tiger. An episode in which we see Leanne having a good time, but unfortunately, it doesn't last that long after she gets attacked in this episode. And we're going to talk about what I think happened in that attack and who might have helped her out. We're breaking it all down here in this spoiler review, but before we do so, make sure you're checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel, we are on the quest to 20,000 subscribers, which is incredible. So come on and join this awesome community by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. As you all can see on the screen now, if you enjoyed this spoiler review of Servant Season 3, Episode 5, well, make sure to like this video, but also share it to everyone you know out there that loves this show just as much as we do. But more importantly, I love interacting with you all in the comment section, so let's continue the conversation in the comments below. Your pros, your cons, favorite moments, least favorite moments, and of course your thoughts and theories and Easter eggs that you all caught in this episode and which you hope to see in the weeks ahead. So just my brief thoughts in this episode. There were some things that I'll talk about that didn't really sit well with me, and it's still kind of a little bit of a pacing issue that I'll bring up. But outside of my little nitpicks that I'm going to bring up in this review, this was another fantastic tension-filled episode once things hit the fan. And you all know what I'm talking about. Once Leanne got that tiger painted on her face and that mysterious hand puts that mark on her head, what that mark can mean, I'll give you all my thoughts on that. And of course, that scene where she's being chased and the camera movements and what happens at the end and the blood on the face. There's so much to really enjoy, and the questions about Sean's past, him reconnecting with his religious beliefs. What exactly are his beliefs and how Dorothy handles that? There's a lot going on in this episode, especially with Julian. He seemed very mysterious, and Roscoe, we talk about mysterious. What the hell is he doing these days? There's a lot of mystery that I enjoyed about this episode, a lot of interesting reveals, and again, that tension-filled chase sequence, top notch. I'll just say that. So a lot of stuff I enjoyed, some nitpicks I had, but overall I enjoyed this episode as a tension-filled kind of middle of the season type of episode. But again, let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section. So let's just get right into the spoiler review as we break down and recap the episode. It's a block party. It's time to have some fun, and it's time for Leanne to step out of the house, and she's finally kind of putting her guard down, which I think after this episode, I don't know how much longer that guard's going to be down, but she's finally feeling comfortable enough to attend this party. And something that I noticed as she's, wearing her mother's overalls, which again, I'm really excited to hopefully learn more about her mom, if she's really dead, if she's alive some way, somehow. But it's in this conversation that she's having with Dorothy and Sean and everyone in the kitchen about, I don't know if you all noticed the conversation about the termites around the house, right? And this has just been a theory of mine for the longest, since like season 1, especially seeing the house continuously breaking down, the manhole in the basement, the cracks in the floor, the cracks in the attic. This house is going to fall apart, and I think it's going to be all due to Leanne at some point, some way. But again, that's my big prediction, is this house, this beautiful home that we see, will inevitably fall apart. And it might not be like literally crumbling in the neighborhood, but I think like foundationally speaking, I'm talking about the actual family will fall apart, and metaphorically probably some more damages going on in the house. But it's something that I noted in that opening conversation there. But leave it to the Turners, who are going all out for this block party. We know that Dorothy loves, having people be happy and trying to have that facade that they are, the rich, fortunate people in the neighborhood. But this is a pretty cool block party. I've been to some block parties in my past, and this is pretty cool, from the bounce house, the folktale dancing, all the different painting areas that they had there, acting booth. And we see that Dorothy notices that Isabel is there to cover this block party, and that is definitely not something she's going to improve on, especially knowing how her last time on camera played out, being embarrassed and potentially not being able to be on camera anymore. She's going to make her presence felt, and she wants the world to see that she's doing good, and also Jericho's doing good, which I love the conversation that Julian brings up. Do you really want to put Jericho in front of the cameras, Dorothy? Especially with Aunt May maybe seeing him and targeting where you all are at, which I found it so interesting. We don't get a lot from Julian in this episode, but that comment, him bringing up Aunt May just so openly, and I don't know if you all noticed, he was sweating a lot. And don't get me wrong, I know he's going through withdrawal. He's still going through his AA, or say his rehab with his drinking and drug addictions and all that stuff. But it seemed like he's holding something in. He brings up Vieira wasn't able to attend. Well, I still have my thoughts on her. But he was looking kind of iffy in this episode. Like, let me know how you all felt about Julian. But again, him bringing up Aunt May and him sweating so much this episode and kind of being in the background. Julian's one of my favorite characters, and he's still a very mysterious character in my eyes, but I thought it was very interesting that he brought up Aunt May at that moment. But moving on to a more interesting conversation, we see that Sean is having a discussion and saying hello to a friend of his, a new friend, a minister by the name of Nancy. And it's very interesting because we all know how Dorothy feels about religion, as well as Sean, and we'll get more into conversations about what does his past, what does he actually believe in, and how all this ties into the Lesser Saints. But then it also kind of answered the question I've been posing this whole season. Why is Sean so, like, I don't want to say forgiving, but he seems just so, like, open to allowing people into his house and not being so kind of on his defense that he was in the first 3 seasons. So it kind of explains, okay, now he's back in church, he's letting people in again, he's feeling more kind of open and free with his religion. So it might explain his kind of iffy and kind of questionable behavior so far in this season. But let me know what you all thought about him being interested in reconnecting with religion again, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But we see that Leanne notices that the homeless people are there, and she has one of the neighbors kick them away, which I thought was kind of rude, if I'm being honest with you all. But again, it just kind of speaks to, I go back to how Leanne was describing the Lesser Saints and with the clothes they wear and the food they eat. I'm starting to think less and less that they're actually Lesser Saints member, or at one point maybe they were, but they're no longer a part of that cult, and they want a new leader to be a part of this new cult in Leanne. And we'll get to my thoughts on that in my breakdown. But I don't know if you all break down in this episode, but going back to little questionable, mysterious characters in the background, what the hell was Roscoe doing at this block party as he's kind of, lingering behind Leanne and he doesn't say anything in this episode. And I don't think this is Julian's doing as far as like investigating what Leanne is doing at this block party. I think Roscoe has maybe been hired by someone else to look into Leanne. But again, he's just there. We don't get much of him, but he's just in the background watching what Leanne is doing. Roscoe, I've been having my eyes on you since you came back from being compromised with the hook, the hand, the baby's crying. Roscoe, I'm watching you, my friend. But moving on to, speaking of creepy here, see Leanne gets a tiger tattoo on her face, and as she's doing this paint tattoo, the lady walks away, and we see this mysterious hand come into the frame. At first, I'm like, is that Uncle George? But then the more I look at the episode, I think it was the same guy that attacked Leanne a little bit later, or it could be Uncle George, but I think this is the guy that attacked her later. But what's more interesting in this moment, he marks her head with some type of symbol, and I'm thinking to myself, what is this symbol? Did it somehow influence Leanne to be less on her, who's a Lesser Saints member, should I not leave the house? I wanted it to kind of allow her to be free and kind of be more open-minded and kind of be, like I said, less on her defense. I'm very curious on what that mark meant and how it kind of influenced her or affected her in this episode, or maybe even moving further. But moving back into this scene here, we're going into Leanne, and again, the symbolizing of this tiger. To me, it spoke to who Leanne is as a character so far from us. She's half, seems to be a good person, wanting to take care of Jericho and look out for the family. And then there's that other side of Leanne, which might be more sinister and dark and hurting people. The seagulls, the beehive, everything that's gone through with this house, the finger being ripped off last week. So it's kind of a duality of that character, and I kind of love it. And again, I might be stretching, but that's where I kind of took that symbolizing of the half tiger and then the half face of Leanne. Which half is she really is really kind of interesting to me. But going back into the episode, we see Leanne confronts Isabel, chatting with a neighbor and being kind of mean, talking about Dorothy. But I love how Leanne checks Isabel and like, it's not nice to talk about people. And she drinks her soda and walks away. I'm like, Isabel, you need to watch out because she might ruin your career on the screen. But speaking of ruining careers, we see that Isabel takes it upon herself to Google Leanne. She met her last season, but she Googles her and finds out that she was a missing person. I wonder what she's going to do with that information. She's going to somehow twist it that Dorothy is like kidnapping Leanne and have more press being involved and get more people involved in the house, aka the Lesser Saints. I don't know, Isabel, someone that Dorothy doesn't like, now Leanne doesn't like, and now I don't like, because why is she digging her nose into her business? We'll see what comes of all that stuff there. But we see that Nancy introduces herself to Dorothy, which obviously to Dorothy's surprise, it shocked the hell out of her that Sean's dealing with religion again, which we'll get into their conversation in a second. But here's me over analyzing things as we see Leanne wins this llama, and I'm like, what's the significance of the llama, as she ultimately gives it to Jericho. But the only thing I was able to really find online was as far as the significance of a llama. They're smart, they're gentle, they're easy to train, and they're helpful for transportation. So I'm like, okay, is this a sign of how Leanne views Toby? You know, he's nice, easy to train, to maybe get him on her side some way, somehow. Or it connects to how she gives it to Jericho. You know, we still don't know the understanding of how she was able to bring this random baby into the house, easy to train and things like that. So I don't know, I might be stretching on the significance of the llama. Let me know you all's thoughts on why you think the llama was why she picked that particular animal. But moving on to the big parts here, I know a lot of you all might feel like the show is kind of moving at a slower pace. It's not really working for you all, and I get that. The show isn't for everyone, but I'm someone that's appreciating these smaller detail moments, and I'm speaking of the moment here where we see the other side of Leanne. And again, I don't know if the mark on her head allowed her to open herself up and have fun and let her guard down, but just seeing her smiling, hanging out with Toby, who is a good guy at the end of the day, right? Toby's just a really good, cool guy. And I talked about it. See, compromise? I don't think he is. Who knows? But it's just seeing her happy, going in the bounce house and just dancing. It's just, I feel so, this show does a good job, at least for me. It makes me feel bad for Leanne. When she was getting abused by Dorothy last season, hearing about her mom treated her, how the cult treated her and all that stuff. But then you think to yourself, she does some effed up things too. So when she does the beehive and the finger being snatched off and all the things that she's done in these past 3 seasons, it's such a give or take, pull or take type of situation with the character, which I feel so bad. I can sympathize with her, but then she does some sinister things. So it's in this moment that I really appreciated the exploration and exploring the duality and the differences of the good side of Leanne and then the bad side of Leanne. I don't know, it's just a scene that I really kind of appreciated. But remember how I thought Sean was ready to get his 15 minutes of fame back? Well, he gets the call from one of these Hollywood producers that they want him to be a lead of a TV show, and he immediately hangs up the phone, which I found to be interesting because literally 2 weeks ago when they were interviewing him about the homeless, it seemed like he was kind of getting excited about getting in front of the camera again. But we all know the last time Sean left his family, Jericho acts, that the whole situation happened. So I find it interesting that he does really kind of wants to focus on his family and kind of make sure that he's there for Dorothy, Jericho, and of course Leanne and everything. So I thought that was a nice little small, quick moment, but an important moment here. But Dorothy and Sean have the conversation about him going back to religion and how he didn't tell her because she thought it was stupid, which she does admit to that. And he brings up, well, you got him baptized. That doesn't really make sense. So listen, as Dorothy would do, she invites Nancy to a dinner date, which we'll talk about my thoughts in the next episode. We're going to get that dinner date pretty soon, and we're going to see how Leanne feels about Nancy and her religious beliefs. So again, let me know in the comments, Sean's past. That's something I've been wanting to explore. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. But as we wrap up here, we've been thinking for weeks, Leanne, not everyone's a Lesser Saints member. Elliot, not everyone's a Lesser Saints member. Well, we get some Lesser Saints members, ladies and gentlemen, as Leanne, which I thought it was kind of silly. Again, I don't know if it was the influence on that mark on her head, but she goes into a dark side of the block party. It's like, there's no lights, there's no one there. She walks into this mysteriously dark tent and she says, hey, are you guys still open? She sees Lesser Saints member. Again, remember how she described them, how they dress, how they look, and they are definitely Lesser Saints members. They have that dagger that was stolen in episode 1. They proceed to attack her. She's able to escape by throwing hot water on the guy. And again, I think that's the same guy that was in the tent earlier that marked her. Again, the tension was so phenomenal and captured so well. It was thrilling. I was on the edge of my seat. She runs, like as she's gathering her keys, trying to open the door. She runs in the house, and I swear to you all, such an awesome shot when they break into the house and we get that camera angle, kind of Christopher Nolan Inception twisting of the camera. The camera work was phenomenal in that moment, in my personal opinion. She gets away. She runs through the house. She goes out through the back door. She runs to the park. We see that there are normal, regular people just walking in the park at night, but we also notice there's also those homeless people. We see that those Lesser Saints members have come close to Leanne, and the scene cuts. We go back inside of the house. We see that she is, cleaning up everything. Her makeup's been smeared. There's blood on those overalls. The Turners make their way back into the house, and they're like, everything okay? Did Toby do something to you? As Dorothy asks her, he said, no, everything's fine. And we see that Dorothy notices that there is blood on the handle. There's scratches on the floor. Cut back to Leanne in the bathroom. He looks in the mirror. We notice that there's a gash in the back of her head. We get quick cuts of what possibly could have happened in that park. We see that she was, held down, surrounded by people. She hit her head, and then she takes that blood and wipes it on her face in the episode. So the question that I am thinking of right now is, okay, how the hell did she manage to get out of that situation? If we're under the assumption that the homeless people are Lesser Saints members, how does she defeat all those people? Does she kill all of them? Well, this is where my theory starts to come in. Going back to what I alluded to earlier, I think those homeless kids or adults or teenagers, they look kind of like adults. I think they were Lesser Saints members at one point, and they've strayed away from that religious cult as Leanne did, and now they want to find that person that escaped in Leanne and have them be a newer Lesser Saints with maybe less rules, less, horrible things that they have done, and they helped her escape those members in a la maybe killing them, hiding their bodies. I don't know, but I think it's safe to assume that right now the homeless people are not there to attack Leanne, but not only protect her, but have her be their new leader. Let me know what you all are thinking about all those theories there, and again, what the significance of that mark on her head can have been and what it could have meant moving forward. And do you think that those homeless people are Lesser Saints member, or are they here to help her because they were members and they want a new cult and they want their leader to be Leanne? Let me know your thoughts on all that. Going back to some questions here, Sean and reconnecting with his religious beliefs. What is Sean's past? Was he at one point? We know he was homeless. Was he a Lesser Saints member? Let me know your thoughts and how you all expect next week's episode to be with this dinner date that we're going to have with Nancy. Julian, again, he seemed really off to me in this episode. Is he back to drinking? Does he have some secrets he's been holding from us? Let me know your thoughts on Julian this episode. And can't leave out, what the hell was Roscoe doing at this party? What Isabel, what is she going to do with the information she found about Leanne missing? And just exclusive little tidbits for you all right here for next week's episode, which is titled Fish. A quick breakdown without giving you too much details, but next week we will be getting that dinner with Dorothy, Sean, and Nancy. And also in the synopsis, Dorothy learns of the frightening details of what happened at the block party. So let me know your thoughts, theories, predictions, pros, cons, and everything in between on this episode and what you hope to see in next week's after I just read you all a little bit of what to expect in episode 6 titled Fish. Thank you all for watching this review. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you enjoyed the review. Again, before you leave, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're almost at 20,000 subscribers, and I want this community to continue to grow, continue to build, and have some awesome people part of this community. So definitely subscribe and hit that notification bell. As you can see on the screen now, hit that subscription button. Check out my other content. We'll catch you all on the next video.